Look at me when you lie." The voice was low, smooth like velvet, but cold as the barrel of a gun. Sienna froze. Across the mahogany desk, Gabriele Moretti wasn't shouting. He wasn't threatening her with a weapon. He was simply watching her, his dark eyes analyzing every micro-expression on her face. She thought she was the one playing the game, an innocent art appraiser hiding a deadly secret. She didn't realize that she had walked straight into a trap the moment she stepped through his doors. He knew who she was. He knew what she had stolen. And now he was going to see just how far she would go to survive him. This wasn't just an interrogation. It was a seduction of the most dangerous kind. The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Sienna Brooks adjusted her grip on her umbrella, her knuckles white, as she stared up at the imposing glass skyscraper of Moretti Holdings. It pierced the grey skyline like a jagged shard of obsidian. She shouldn't be here. Every instinct she had, honed by 3 years of running, told her to turn around, get back in her rusted 2018 Honda Civic, and drive until the gas light flickered out. But instinct didn't pay the bills at the assisted living facility, where her father was slowly losing his battle with dementia. Money did. And the contract sitting in her bag offered an obscene amount of it. Just an appraisal, she whispered to herself, the steam from her breath fogging up in the cold November air. Walk in, look at the collection, give a valuation, and leave. She pushed through the revolving doors, the roar of the city traffic instantly silenced, replaced by the hushed, sterile hum of billion-dollar commerce. The lobby smelled of white tea and intimidation. Name? The security guard didn't look up from his console. He was built like a tank, wearing a suit that cost more than Sienna's entire wardrobe. Sienna Brooks. I have an appointment with Mr. Moretti at 10. The guard paused. His eyes snapped up, scanning her face. For a second, a flicker of something. Pity crossed his stoic expression. Top floor, private elevator, he's expecting you. Sienna swallowed hard, walking towards the elevator bank. She felt like she was walking onto a gallows. Gabriele Moretti. The name was whispered in art circles, usually followed by an uncomfortable silence. On paper, he was a venture capitalist and a patron of the arts. In the shadows, rumors swirled about shipping routes in Naples, vanished rivals, and a bloodline that went back to the old Sicilian families. The elevator ride was smooth and fast, the pressure building in her ears. When the doors slid open, she wasn't in an office. She was in a penthouse that looked more like a museum. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but the walls were the real attraction. A genuine Basquiat hung casually near the coat rack. A Renaissance-era tapestry dominated the hallway. "You're early." The voice came from the balcony. Sienna turned, clutching her bag to her chest. Gabriele Moretti stepped inside, sliding the glass door shut behind him to block out the wind. He was taller than he looked in the tabloids, with broad shoulders that strained against a charcoal dress shirt. He wasn't wearing a tie, and the top 2 buttons were undone, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin. But it was his face that stopped her breath, strikingly handsome, with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, yet ruined by eyes that were devoid of warmth. They were the color of espresso, dark and intense. "Mr. Moretti," Sienna managed, forcing her voice to remain steady, "punctuality is part of the job. So is discretion," he countered, walking toward her. He didn't offer his hand. Instead, he circled her slowly like a predator inspecting a new arrival in his territory. "I've gone through 3 appraisers in the last month, Miss Brooks. Do you know why?" "Because you have high standards?" she ventured. Gabriel stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, sandalwood, leather, and something smoky. "Because they were liars. They told me what they thought I wanted to hear. They inflated prices to stroke my ego, or undervalued pieces to buy them cheap later through intermediaries." He leaned down slightly, his gaze piercing. "I don't tolerate liars." Do you understand? A chill ran down Sienna's spine. If he knew why she was really here, if he knew that her name wasn't actually Sienna Brooks, or that she was looking for evidence regarding her brother's disappearance 3 years ago, he wouldn't just fire her. She'd disappear. I don't lie about art, Mr. Moretti, she said, holding his gaze. Paintings are the only things in this world that are honest. A corner of his mouth ticked up. It wasn't a smile. It was a challenge. We'll see. Follow me. He led her into a study that smelled of old paper and whiskey. In the center of the room, resting on a heavy oak easel, was a painting covered by a velvet cloth. I acquired this 3 days ago from a private cellar in Zurich, Gabriel said, pouring himself a drink from a crystal decanter. He didn't offer her one. The seller claims it's a lost work of Caravaggio, the betrayal of St. Peter. Sienna's heart skipped a beat. A lost Caravaggio? That would be worth hundreds of millions. It was the kind of find that defined careers. Show me, she said. Gabriel pulled the cloth away. The painting was magnificent. The chiaroscuro lighting, the dramatic agony on the saint's face, the deep, rich blacks and vibrant reds. It was breathtaking. Sienna stepped closer, pulling a jeweler's loop from her pocket. She leaned in, examining the brushstrokes, the craquelure pattern in the varnish, the way the light hit the pigment. For 2 minutes, the room was silent except for the ticking of a grandfather clock. Sienna's heart sank. It was a fake. It was a brilliant fake, perhaps one of the best she had ever seen. The technique was flawless, mimicking the master's style perfectly. But the blue pigment in the saint's robe, she recognized the specific granular texture. It wasn't lapis lazuli from the 17th century. It was a synthetic ultramarine mix that didn't exist until the 1820s. She straightened up, her mind racing. The seller in Zurich was likely the Rossi syndicate, a rival crime family. If Gabriel Moretti bought a fake from them for millions, it wasn't just a bad investment. It was an insult, a declaration of war. If she told him it was a fake, she might trigger a mob war. If she told him it was real, she would be lying to a man who just promised to destroy liars. And then she saw it. Resting on the desk next to the easel was a file with the seller's name. Lucas Vance. Her breath hitched. Lucas, her brother's old partner. The man who had lured her brother into the underworld before they both vanished. Gabriel was watching her. He was leaning against his desk, arms crossed, studying her reaction more than the painting. Well? Gabriel asked softly. Is it the find of the century? Or did I just waste $20 million? Sienna's hands trembled slightly. She shoved them into her pockets. She needed to stay in this house. She needed to find out what Gabriel knew about Lucas. If she told him the painting was fake, he might return it, close the deal, and kick her out. But if she validated it, she could gain his trust. She could stay close. She paused, licking her dry lips. It's magnificent, Mr. Moretti. The brushwork in the shadows is definitive. I'd stake my reputation on it. The lie tasted like acid on her tongue. Gabriel didn't move. He didn't smile. He just stared at her, the silence stretching until it felt like a physical weight. You'd stake your reputation, he repeated, his voice dropping an octave. Yes. He pushed off the desk and walked toward her. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. He stopped inches from her, towering over her frame. He reached out, his hand brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His fingers were warm, but his touch sent a shiver of fear through her. Then your reputation is worthless, Miss Brooks. Sienna's eyes widened. Excuse me? It's a forgery, Gabriel stated flatly. I had the pigments analyzed in a lab in Geneva before it even arrived. I know it's fake. I know who painted it. And I know the man who sold it is trying to launder money through my accounts. He took a step closer, backing her against the easel. I didn't hire you to tell me if it was real, Gabriel whispered, his lips brushing her ear. I hired you to see if you would tell me the truth. Sienna couldn't breathe. He knew. He pulled back, gripping her chin gently but firmly, forcing her to look up at him. His eyes were burning with a dark, terrifying intelligence. "So tell me, Sienna, or whatever your real name is," he murmured, "why did you lie to me? Are you working for them? Or are you just another desperate soul trying to survive in a city of sharks?" Sienna's mind scrambled for an exit, but there was none. She was trapped in the penthouse with a man who had just stripped away her only defense. She stammered. "Careful," Gabriel warned, his thumb tracing her lower lip. "Look at me when you lie." The silence in the penthouse was heavy, suffocating. Sienna felt the blood drain from her face, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Gabriel Moretti's hand was still on her chin, his thumb resting dangerously close to her throat. His skin was warm, a terrifying contrast to the cold calculation in his eyes. "I asked you a question," Gabriel said, his voice dropping to a whisper that vibrated through her bones. "Who are you?" Sienna tried to pull away, but his grip tightened just enough to hold her in place. It wasn't painful, but it was absolute. He was a man used to controlling everything in his orbit: stocks, ships, people. "My name is Sienna Brooks," she lied again, though her voice shook. "Strike two," Gabriel said, releasing her abruptly. He turned his back on her, walking towards a massive window overlooking the rain-slicked city. "Sienna Brooks died in a car accident in Ohio 4 years ago. You stole her identity from a dormant credit file. Your real name is Sienna Cross, and you are the younger sister of Lucas Reed." Hearing her brother's real name, not the alias he used in the underworld, hit her like a physical blow. She staggered back, her legs hitting the leather sofa. "How?" she whispered. Gabriel turned, his silhouette framed by the storm outside. "I know everything that enters my city, Sienna. When a woman with a fake degree and a stolen name starts asking questions about a low-level fixer like Lucas Reed, she appears on my radar." He walked back to the desk, picked up the file he had shown her earlier, and tossed it onto the coffee table. It slid across the glass surface, stopping at her feet. "Open it." Sienna hesitated, then reached down with trembling fingers. She flipped the folder open. It wasn't just a bill of sale for the fake painting. It was a dossier. There were photos of her leaving her apartment, photos of her father at the care facility, and then photos of Lucas. But these weren't old family photos. These were surveillance shots taken last week. Lucas was laughing, getting into a silver Porsche, wearing a tailored suit. "He's alive!" she gasped, tears pricking her eyes. He looks rich." "He is," Gabriel said, pouring himself another drink. "While you've been working double shifts and visiting your dying father in a state-funded facility, your brother has been living in luxury in Zurich. He bought his way into the Rossi crime family by selling them something very valuable." Sienna looked up, confusion warring with the relief. What did he sell? Gabriel took a slow sip of his whiskey, his eyes locking onto hers. "Me, or rather, my shipping routes. 3 years ago, Lucas worked for me in logistics. He stole encrypted codes and sold them to my rivals. That betrayal cost me $20 million and the lives of 3 of my men." The glass in Sienna's hand would have shattered if she were holding one. The brother she was trying to save, the innocent boy she thought had been kidnapped by the mob, was the villain. He hadn't been taken. He had run away with the money and left her to rot. "No," she denied weakly. "Lucas wouldn't. He loves me." "He left you to pay his debts," Gabriel corrected ruthlessly. "And now he's trying to sell me a fake painting to insult me. He thinks I'm stupid. He thinks I'll buy the forgery, discover it later, and be the laughingstock of the underworld. He wants to humiliate me before he makes a play for my territory." Gabriel set his glass down and stalked toward her. The air crackled with electricity. "I could kill you," he stated, his tone conversational. "It would be easy. You're an intruder, a spy. No one would look for you." Sienna stiffened, her survival instinct finally overriding her shock. She stood up, meeting his gaze. "Then do it. If my brother is really the monster you say he is, I have nothing left to lose." Gabriel stopped. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. He studied her, looking at the fire in her eyes, the way she squared her shoulders despite the fear radiating off her. "You have fire," he murmured, almost to himself. "Good. You'll need it." "For what?" "For the performance." Gabriel checked his watch, a diamond-encrusted Patek Philippe. "Lucas is coming to Seattle. He's attending the Emerald Gala on Saturday. He wants to see the look on my face when I unveil the fake painting. He wants to gloat." "So?" "So." Gabrielle stepped closer, invading her personal space, until she had to tilt her head back to look at him. "I'm not going to unveil the painting. I'm going to unveil you." Sienna blinked. "Me?" "You're going to be my fiancé," Gabriel declared. "We will go to the gala together. You will look stunning. You will look happy. And when Lucas sees that his sister is sleeping with the enemy, that she is the future queen of the empire he tried to destroy, he will lose his composure. He will make a mistake. And when he does, I will crush him." "You want me to be bait?" she accused. "I want you to be a weapon," he corrected. "You want answers? You want to know why he abandoned you? Help me destroy him, and I'll give you $5 million, enough to put your father in the best private clinic in Switzerland and live the rest of your life in peace." $5 million. It was an abstract number, something from a dream. It could save her father. It could erase the last 3 years of misery. "And if I refuse?" Gabriel's expression hardened. "Then you walk out that door. But Lucas will know you were here. He'll think you talked. He's already shown he doesn't care about family. Do you think he'll let a loose end like you live?" It was a trap, a beautiful golden trap. Whether she stayed or left, she was in danger. But if she stayed, she had the most dangerous man in Seattle on her side. Sienna took a deep breath. She looked at the fake Caravaggio, then at the man who was more terrified than any painted saint. "I have conditions," she said. Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "You're in no position to negotiate, cara mia." "I am if you want this to look real," she countered, her voice gaining strength. "First, my father gets moved to a private facility tonight. Second, you don't touch me. This is business. I'm not selling my body for a paycheck." Gabriel stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, a smirk curled his lips. It made him look devastatingly handsome and infinitely more dangerous. "Agreed," he said. "Your father will be moved within the hour. And as for touching you..." He leaned down, his lips grazing her ear. "I won't touch you unless you beg me to. But by the time we're done, Sienna, you might be surprised by what you want." He pulled back before she could respond to the flush of heat rising in her cheeks. "Welcome to the family, Miss Cross. Now go wash your face. We have work to do." The next 3 days were a blur of organized chaos. Sienna was moved into the guest wing of Gabriel's penthouse, a suite larger than her entire apartment building. Her phone was confiscated. "For your safety," Gabriel had said, though she knew it was control. And she was given a burner phone with only one number saved, his. She wasn't a guest. She was a prisoner in a 5-star hotel. On Friday morning, the team arrived. There were stylists, hairdressers, and a tailor who spoke rapid-fire Italian and poked her with pins while muttering about her hips. "Too thin," the tailor complained. "She eats nothing?" "She will eat," Gabriel's voice came from the doorway. Sienna looked up. She hadn't seen him since their deal. He was leaning against the doorframe, wearing a navy suit, looking effortlessly powerful. He walked into the room, and the stylists immediately parted like the Red Sea. He circled her, inspecting the emerald green silk gown the tailor was pinning. "Green," he noted, "the color of envy." "It brings out her eyes, Signore Moretti," the tailor said nervously. Gabriel stopped in front of her. He reached out, his knuckles brushing her bare shoulder. Sienna flinched, but she held her ground. "It's too loose here," Gabriel said, tapping her waist. "It needs to look possessed." Like my hand is the only thing keeping the dress on her. The tailor nodded furiously and began pinning tighter. Sienna glared at Gabriel. Is that necessary? Appearances are everything, he said, his eyes dark. Lucas needs to believe you are mine. Completely. I am not yours, she hissed, low enough so the staff couldn't hear. Gabriel leaned in, his breath hot on her neck. Until Saturday night is over, you are whatever I say you are. Don't forget who is paying for your father's nurses, Sienna. He walked out before she could reply, leaving her seething. He was infuriating, arrogant, cruel. And yet, when he was in the room, the air felt charged in a way she had never experienced. She hated him. She had to hate him. Saturday night, the Emerald Gala. The venue was the Seattle Art Museum, transformed into a playground for the ultra-rich. Chandeliers dripped crystals, champagne flowed like water, and the air smelled of money and expensive perfume. Sienna stepped out of the limousine, her hand gripping Gabriel's arm. She felt naked, though the green dress covered her. It clung to every curve, the slit riding high up her thigh. A diamond necklace, real, heavy, and cold, rested against her collarbone. Breathe, Gabriel muttered as the camera flashes blinded them. Smile, you adore me. I'm trying not to throw up, she muttered back, plastering a radiant smile on her face. Close enough. They swept inside. Gabriel was immediately accosted by business partners and rivals. He navigated the room with the grace of a shark, introducing Sienna as my muse. She played the part. She laughed at bad jokes, sipped champagne she didn't want, and scanned the room. Where is he? She whispered. Patience, Gabriel said, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. The heat of his palm burned through the silk. He's watching. I can feel him. An hour passed. The tension was winding tight in Sienna's chest. They were standing near a sculpture exhibit when a voice drifted from behind them. Gabriel, I didn't think you'd show your face after that embarrassment in Zurich. Sienna froze. She knew that voice. It was deeper, smoother than she remembered, but the cadence was the same. Gabriel turned slowly, pulling Sienna with him. Standing there, holding a martini, was Lucas. He looked different. The scruffy, anxious brother who wore hoodies and denim was gone. In his place was a man in a white tuxedo, his hair slicked back, a smug grin on his face. He looked polished. He looked rich. And he didn't even look at Sienna. His eyes were fixed entirely on Gabriel. Lucas, Gabriel said, his voice calm, bordering on bored. I wasn't aware they let the help in through the front door. Lucas's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. I'm not the help anymore, Gabriel. I'm a partner at the Rossi firm now. We heard about your acquisition. A Caravaggio? Bold move. I'd love to see it. I'm sure you would, Gabriel said dryly. But I have something far more exquisite to show off tonight. Gabriel stepped aside slightly, pushing Sienna forward into the light. Lucas, have you met my fiancée? Sienna. Lucas's eyes shifted to her. For a moment, there was no recognition. He was looking at the diamonds, the dress, the expensive hair. Then his eyes met hers. The glass in his hand tilted. A splash of martini spilled onto his white cuff. Sienna, he whispered. The arrogance vanished, replaced by pure shock. What are you doing here? Hello, Lucas, Sienna said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. It's been a long time. 3 years, right? Since you went out for cigarettes and never came back. Lucas paled. He looked from Sienna to Gabriel, the realization dawning on him. The color drained from his face. You... Lucas pointed a shaking finger at Gabriel. You found her. I didn't have to find her, Gabriel lied smoothly, wrapping his arm around Sienna's waist and pulling her flush against his hard body. She came to me. She was looking for someone to take care of her, since her family abandoned her. I was happy to oblige. Gabriel kissed Sienna's temple, a tender gesture that looked intimate to the crowd, but felt like a brand to Lucas. She's a wonderful woman, Lucas, Gabriel taunted. Loyal, honest, everything you aren't. We're very happy." Lucas's jaw tightened. The shock was turning into rage. "Get away from him, Sienna. He's a killer." "And what are you?" Sienna snapped, the anger finally boiling over. "You left Dad to rot in a state home. You left me with your debts. You're driving a Porsche while I was selling my blood plasma to pay for Dad's medication." People were starting to stare. The murmur of the gala quieted. "I did it for us," Lucas hissed, stepping forward. "I was going to come back." "Liar," Gabriel interjected softly. "You've been in Seattle for a week, Lucas. You haven't visited her once. You were too busy buying that suit." Lucas lunged. It was a sloppy, angry movement. Before he could get within 2 feet of Sienna, Gabriel moved. It was a blur of motion. One hand blocked Lucas's arm, twisting it painfully behind his back, while the other shoved him hard against the pedestal of a marble statue. The room gasped. Security guards started moving, but Gabriel held up a hand, stopping them. He leaned into Lucas's ear, his voice low enough that only Sienna and Lucas could hear. "You wanted to play games with me, boy?" Gabriel growled. "You sent me a fake painting, so I took the real masterpiece. Sienna is mine now, and if you ever come near her again, I won't just break your arm. I'll break everything." Gabriel shoved Lucas away. Lucas stumbled, clutching his wrist, his face red with humiliation and fury. He looked at Sienna one last time, a look of pure venom, before turning and disappearing into the crowd. Sienna stood trembling. Her adrenaline was crashing. She felt like she might faint. Gabriel was there instantly. His arm went around her, supporting her weight. "Easy," he whispered, his voice surprisingly gentle. "It's done. You did perfectly." "He hates me," she whispered. "My own brother hates me." "He hates himself," Gabriel corrected. "Come, let's get you a drink." He led her towards the terrace, away from the prying eyes. But as they stepped out into the cool night air, Sienna noticed something. A man in a dark coat was watching them from the shadows of the balcony above. He wasn't security. He was holding a phone, recording. She grabbed Gabriel's arm. "Gabriel, up there!" Before she could finish, a red laser dot appeared on the lapel of Gabriel's jacket, right over his heart. Sienna didn't think. She didn't calculate. She just reacted. "Get down!" She threw her weight against Gabriel, tackling him to the cold stone floor, just as the suppressed thwip of a sniper round shattered the glass door behind them. The world dissolved into a cacophony of screaming glass and shouting voices. Sienna was pressed flat against the cold stone of the terrace, Gabriel's heavy weight shielding her. She could feel the rapid, thundering beat of his heart against her back. "Stay down!" Gabriel roared, his voice unrecognizable, stripped of its usual smooth veneer. More shots rang out. Pop, 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 chipping the stone railing above their heads. Security agents in black suits swarmed the terrace, returning fire towards the adjacent rooftop. "Boss, we need to move, now!" A large hand grabbed Gabriel's jacket, hauling him up. He didn't let go of Sienna. He gripped her waist with a force that bruised, dragging her to her feet and practically carrying her back inside the museum. The gala was in chaos. People were screaming, overturning tables, scrambling for the exits. "The back exit! Go!" Gabriel commanded his head of security, a scarred man named Dominic. They sprinted through the kitchen, the staff cowering against the stainless steel counters. Sienna's heels slipped on the tiled floor. Without breaking stride, she kicked them off, running barefoot through the debris. They burst out into the alleyway where an armored SUV was waiting, engine idling. Gabriel shoved her into the back seat and dove in after her. "Drive!" The tires screeched, burning rubber as the heavy vehicle fishtailed onto the main road, weaving through traffic. Gabriel didn't look at the road. He was scanning Sienna, his hands running over her arms, her shoulders, checking for blood. "Are you hit?" he demanded, his eyes wide and frantic. Sienna was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. I don't think so. My knee. I fell on my knee." Gabriel looked down. Her emerald dress was torn at the hem, and her knee was scraped raw and bleeding, staining the silk dark. But there were no bullet holes. He let out a breath that sounded like a growl. He slumped back against the leather seat, running a hand through his hair, destroying his perfect styling. "You're an idiot," he said roughly. Sienna blinked, the adrenaline turning into indignation. "Excuse me? You tackled me," he snapped, turning to glare at her. "You threw yourself in front of a bullet. Who does that? You're supposed to be the bait, not the shield." "You're welcome," she shouted back, her fear morphing into anger. "Next time I'll just let your head explode, shall I?" "There won't be a next time." Gabriel pulled a handgun from a holster concealed beneath his jacket, checking the chamber with practiced ease. "Dominic, take us to the safe house. The penthouse is compromised." "Yes, sir." The drive was long and silent. They left the city limits, driving deep into the forested hills of the Pacific Northwest. The rain hammered against the reinforced glass. Sienna hugged herself, shivering. The heater was on, but the cold was inside her. They arrived at a modern cabin made of concrete and steel, hidden down a long, unmarked gravel road. It looked more like a bunker than a home. Inside, Gabriel immediately went to the liquor cabinet. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid and handed one to Sienna. "Drink, it's brandy. It helps with the shock." Sienna took it with both hands to keep it from spilling. She took a gulp and coughed as the fire burned down her throat. Gabriel vanished into a bathroom and returned with a first aid kit. He knelt in front of the sofa where she was sitting. "Lift your dress." Sienna hesitated. "I can do it myself." "Sienna," he said, his voice dropping to that velvet, warning tone. "Lift the dress." She pulled the ruined silk up to her thigh. Gabriel poured antiseptic onto a cotton pad. His movements were surprisingly gentle as he dabbed at her scraped knee. The sting made her hiss, but he didn't stop until it was clean. He applied a bandage, his large hands warm against her skin. He didn't pull away immediately. He stayed kneeling there, his hand resting on her calf. He looked up at her, and the intensity in his dark eyes stole the air from her lungs. "Why?" he asked again, softer this time. "You hate me. I blackmailed you. I threatened you. Why did you save my life?" Sienna looked down at him. She wanted to say it was instinct. She wanted to say she didn't know. But the truth was more complicated. "Because," she whispered, "my brother is a monster. If you die, he wins, and I'm tired of him winning." Gabriel stared at her for a long moment. Then he stood up, towering over her. The atmosphere in the room shifted. It wasn't about danger anymore. It was about the raw, magnetic pull between 2 people who had just cheated death. "You're not just a pretty face, are you, Sienna Cross?" "I told you," she said, her voice steadying. "I know art. I know what's real and what's fake. Tonight was real." Gabriel reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. His thumb brushed over her bottom lip. "You're dangerous. You make me want to do reckless things." "Like what?" "Like trust you." He leaned in. Sienna's breath hitched. She expected him to kiss her. She wanted him to kiss her. God help her. But he stopped inches from her lips. "Go to sleep," he whispered, pulling back. "Take the bedroom. I'll take the couch. We have a war to start in the morning." He walked away, leaving her burning with a mixture of frustration and relief. Sienna woke to the smell of coffee and burnt wood. She was in a massive bed, wrapped in a duvet that smelled like him, sandalwood and crisp linen. For a second, she forgot where she was. Then the memories of the gunshot and the blood rushed back. She found a heavy, oversized shirt on the chair, Gabriel's, and pulled it on. It hung to her mid-thighs. She walked out into the main living area. Gabriel was standing by the fireplace, talking to Dominic. A holographic map of the city was projected onto the coffee table, red dots blinking in the warehouse district. They both stopped when she entered. "Morning," Gabriel said. He was back in business mode, wearing fresh trousers and a black turtleneck that emphasized his broad chest. "Dominic brought breakfast." and bad news. Sienna poured herself coffee, clutching the mug. What bad news? Gabriel nodded to Dominic. We interrogated the shooter, Dominic said, his voice gravelly. He was a freelancer, hired by the Rossi family, but he didn't have the security codes for the museum. The Rossi family couldn't have gotten him into that position on the balcony without help. Lucas, Sienna said. It wasn't a question. Gabriel walked over to the table and picked up a tablet. He hesitated before handing it to her. You don't have to see this. Give it to me. Sienna took the tablet. It was a transcript of a text conversation recovered from the shooter's burner phone. Source, ghost message. Target will be on the East Terrace at 22 o'clock. I'll lure him out. The girl will be with him. Shooter, what about the girl? Collateral? Source, acceptable loss. Just make sure Moretti drops. Sienna read the words acceptable loss 3 times. The letters seemed to swim before her eyes. Lucas, her brother. The boy she had protected from bullies in elementary school. The boy she had worked 3 jobs to support. He hadn't just ignored her safety. He had signed off on her death. To him, she was just collateral damage in his climb to power. Something inside Sienna broke, but it didn't shatter into tears. It calcified. It hardened into something cold and sharp. She placed the tablet down gently on the table. The room was silent. Gabriel was watching her closely, waiting for the breakdown. He used to be afraid of the dark, Sienna said softly. When we were kids, I used to leave the hall light on for him. She looked up at Gabriel. Her eyes were dry. I want to turn out his lights, Gabriel. Gabriel's eyes flared with appreciation. A dark smile touched his lips. I was hoping you'd say that. What's the plan? She asked. The Rossi family thinks I'm dead, Gabriel explained. We've controlled the media narrative. The news is reporting that I was critically injured and taken to surgery. No updates. So they'll get sloppy, Sienna surmised. Exactly. Lucas and the Rossi boss, Stefano, are meeting tonight at the port. They're planning to take over my shipment of electronics. They think the king is dead, so they're coming to loot the castle. Gabriel walked over to a metal cabinet and unlocked it. He pulled out a sleek, black, Kevlar vest. Dominic will take a team to the docks. We ambush them. I'm coming with you, Sienna said. Absolutely not, Gabriel replied instantly. It's going to be a war zone. I'm the only one he trusts, Sienna argued, stepping forward. If you just ambush him, he might run. He's a rat, Gabriel. He's fast. But if he sees me, if he thinks I escaped, he'll hesitate. He'll want to know why I'm alive. It's too dangerous. You said I was a weapon, she reminded him, throwing his own words back in his face. Use me. Gabriel stared at her, the muscle in his jaw ticking. He stepped close, gripping her shoulders. If you get hurt, I will burn this city to the ground. You understand? I understand. Fine. He turned to Dominic. Get her a vest and a gun. I don't know how to shoot, Sienna admitted. Gabriel moved behind her, molding his body against hers. He picked up a handgun from the table and placed it in her hand. He wrapped his large fingers over hers, guiding her aim towards the fireplace. Stance wide, he murmured, his voice vibrating against her ear. Breathe out. Squeeze, don't pull. He guided her through the motions. It was an intimate, deadly dance. The smell of gun oil and his cologne was intoxicating. Keep the safety on until you're ready to kill, he whispered. Once you take it off, there is no going back. I'm ready, she said. Gabriel turned her around in his arms. The training session was over. The distance between them vanished. Sienna, he breathed. This time he didn't stop. He kissed her. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was fierce, possessive, and hungry. It tasted of coffee and danger. Sienna's hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. He groaned low in his throat, lifting her up so she was sitting on the edge of the heavy oak table. For a few minutes, the war didn't exist. There was only the heat of his skin, the roughness of his stubble, and the desperate need to feel alive before walking into death. Gabriel pulled back, breathless, his forehead resting against hers. "Tonight," he vowed, "we end them, and then we figure out what this is." "Deal," she whispered. Nightfall, the docks, the Seattle rain was back, harder than ever. The shipping yard was a maze of rusted metal containers. Gabriel's men were shadows, moving silently into position. Sienna huddled in the passenger seat of a black sedan, parked just out of sight. She was wearing the Kevlar vest under a dark trench coat. Her heart was hammering, but her hands were steady. Through the earpiece she heard Gabriel's voice. "They're here!" 3 SUVs pulled up to the pier. Men spilled out, armed with assault rifles. In the center, under a large umbrella held by a bodyguard, was Stefano Rossi. And next to him, looking nervous but greedy, was Lucas. "Open container 4B!" Lucas shouted to the workers. "That's where Moretti keeps the high-end chips." The container doors groaned open. "Now!" Gabriel's voice crackled. Floodlights blinded the Rossi crew. From the tops of the containers, Gabriel's men appeared, weapons trained. "Drop them!" Dominic's voice boomed over a loudspeaker. Panic ensued. The Rossi men scrambled for cover, firing blindly. A firefight erupted. "Stay here," the driver told Sienna. "No," she said, opening the door. "Miss Brooks!" She ignored him. She slipped into the shadows, moving towards the chaos. She saw Gabriel in the center of the fray, moving with lethal precision, taking down 2 men. But she wasn't looking for the fight. She was looking for the rat. She saw him. Lucas was crawling on his hands and knees behind a stack of pallets, trying to reach a parked speedboat at the edge of the dock. He was abandoning his new partners, just like he had abandoned her. Sienna moved. She cut through the aisle of containers, flanking him. Just as Lucas reached the edge of the dock, fumbling with the rope of the boat, he heard the click of a safety being disengaged. He froze. "Going somewhere, Lucas?" He spun around on his knees. Sienna stood 10 feet away, the gun leveled at his chest. The rain plastered her hair to her face, making her look like a vengeful spirit. "Sienna!" Lucas gasped, his eyes bulging. You're alive? You thought I was acceptable loss," she finished, her voice cold steel. Lucas scrambled back. No, you don't understand. They forced me. I had to say that." "Stop lying!" she screamed, the sound tearing from her throat. Look at me when you lie." Lucas trembled. He looked past her, his eyes widening. "Sienna, behind you." She didn't fall for it. "I'm not stupid, Lucas." "No, really." A shadow fell over her. Sienna spun, but she was too late. A Rossi enforcer who had flanked them swung the butt of his rifle. It connected with her temple. Pain exploded in her head. The world tilted sideways. The gun clattered from her hand. She hit the wet concrete, darkness rushing in to swallow her. The last thing she heard was Gabriel's voice, screaming her name, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror. The sound of the rifle butt connecting with Sienna's temple wasn't a crack. It was a dull, sickening thud that seemed to vibrate through the entire shipping yard. For Gabriel, the world didn't just stop. It shattered. He watched with horrific clarity as Sienna crumpled to the wet concrete, her dark hair fanning out in a puddle of rainwater and oil. In that split second, the calculated businessman vanished. A primal, ancient rage clawed its way up Gabriel's throat. The Rossi enforcer standing over her sneered, raising his rifle to finish the job. He never got the chance. "No!" The roar tore from Gabriel's chest. He moved with the terrifying speed of a man possessed, crossing the distance in a heartbeat. He didn't use his gun. He wanted to feel the life leave the man who had dared to touch her. Gabriel batted the barrel aside, searing his palm, and drove his fist into the man's throat. As the enforcer gagged, Gabriel slammed him against the steel container, the metal groaning under the impact. "You touched her!" Gabriel snarled, his voice a distorted growl. He ended the threat with a single, point-blank shot from his sidearm, then dropped to his knees beside Sienna, ignoring the mud soaking his expensive trousers. "Sienna! Look at me!" He cupped her face, his hands trembling. Her skin was pale, blood mixing with the rain. For a terrifying second, he thought he was too late. Then she groaned. Her eyelids fluttered open, unfocused and pained. "Gabriel," she whispered. "I've got you," he choked out, pulling her against his chest. "You're safe." "Lucas," she mumbled, clutching his lapel. "The boat. He's leaving." Gabriel's head snapped up. The roar of an outboard motor echoed off the walls. Lucas had managed to untie the ropes during the chaos. He was 60 yards out, bouncing over the choppy waves, looking at the horizon. He wasn't looking back at the sister who had just taken a bullet for him. He was leaving her to die. Again. Gabriel's expression went cold. "Dominic, rifle." Dominic tossed him the weapon. Gabriel stood, planted his feet, and tracked the moving boat through the scope. He didn't aim for Lucas. Death was too quick. He aimed for the engine. Bang! The shot cracked like thunder. The speedboat's engine exploded in a shower of sparks and smoke. The vessel lurched, dead in the water. "Drag him back here," Gabriel ordered. 10 minutes later, the surviving Rossi men were zip-tied, and a soaking wet, shivering Lucas was thrown at Gabriel's feet. Sienna, sitting on the back of an ambulance with a bandaged head, stood up on shaky legs. "Gabriel, please," Lucas sputtered, wiping slime from his chin. "It was business. I didn't know she was there." Gabriel stepped aside, revealing Sienna. Lucas froze. He looked for the loving sister who used to pay his rent, but he only found a stranger with eyes like flint. "Sienna," Lucas pleaded, crawling toward her. "Tell him. We're family. Blood is thicker than water. I was coming back for you, I swear." Sienna looked down at the brother she had mourned for 3 years. "You weren't coming back." "I was. I swear on Mum's grave." "Look at me when you lie," Sienna screamed, her voice cracking with heartbreak. Lucas flinched. He looked up, and for the first time he couldn't hold her gaze. His eyes darted away. "You left Dad to rot," Sienna said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You let me starve. And tonight, you left me to die because I was an inconvenience. That's not family, Lucas. That's a parasite." "I'm sorry," he sobbed, reaching for her coat. "Cece, please." Sienna peeled his fingers off her coat with cold deliberation. "The sister who loved you died 3 years ago. You're a stranger." She turned her back on him. Lucas screamed as Gabriel stepped in, blocking his view. "Killing you would be a mercy," Gabriel said, his voice void of emotion. "And you don't deserve mercy. You're going to Blackgate Penitentiary, and because everyone inside knows you betrayed your own blood, you're going to have a long, miserable life." "No!" Lucas gasped as the guards dragged him away into the darkness. Gabriel walked over to Sienna. He didn't speak. He just opened his coat and wrapped her inside it, shielding her from the rain and the pain. "It's over," he whispered into her hair. "He can't hurt you anymore." Sienna buried her face in his chest, and finally, she wept. 2 weeks later. The private clinic in Zurich was more like a resort than a hospital. From the balcony of her father's room, Sienna could see the snow-capped Alps reflecting the morning sun. Her father was sitting in a plush armchair, listening to classical music. He looked healthier than he had in years. The nurses were kind, the food was excellent, and the doctors were optimistic about managing his condition. "He's doing well," a voice said from the doorway. Sienna turned. Gabriel was leaning against the doorframe. He wasn't wearing his usual armor of black suits. He wore a grey cashmere sweater and jeans, looking younger, more relaxed. "He recognized me today," Sienna said, a small smile touching her lips. "For about 5 minutes. He asked where Lucas was." "What did you tell him?" "I told him Lucas is traveling," Sienna said quietly. "It's better he doesn't know." Gabriel nodded and walked onto the balcony, standing beside her. The air was crisp and cold. "The transfer is complete," Gabriel said. $5 million in an account under your name. The house in Tuscany is ready if you want it. Your identity is scrubbed. You're free, Sienna." Sienna looked at his profile. This was the moment. The deal was done. The fake fiancé contract was fulfilled. She had the money. She had her father's safety. She could go anywhere in the world and never look back. But the thought of leaving made her chest ache. "So," she said, trying to keep her voice light, "I guess this is goodbye. The job is done." Gabriel didn't look at her. He stared at the mountains, his jaw tight. "Yes, the job is done." "You'll go back to Seattle?" "There is work to do. Rebuilding the network. Dealing with the Rossi remnants." "Right." Sienna gripped the railing. "Well, thank you for everything. Even the kidnapping." She forced a laugh, but it sounded brittle. She turned to walk back into the room, to pack her bag and leave. "Sienna!" His voice stopped her. It wasn't a command this time. It was a plea. She turned back. Gabriel had turned to face her. The barrier was down. His dark eyes were raw, open, vulnerable in a way she had never seen. "Don't go." Sienna's heart skipped a beat. "Gabriel." "I have billions," he said, taking a step toward her. "I have ships in every port, properties on every continent. I have power that men kill for. And for the last 10 years, I have felt absolutely nothing." He reached out, taking her hand. His thumb traced the pulse at her wrist. "Until you walked into my office and lied to my face," he murmured. "You challenged me. You saved me. You see me, Sienna. Not the boss, not the monster. Just me." "You said you don't tolerate liars," Sienna whispered, her throat tight. "Then I'll tell you the truth," Gabriel said intensely. "I don't want you to go to Tuscany. I don't want you to be free of me. I want you in Seattle. I want you in my bed, in my life, by my side. I want to wake up every morning and argue with you about art." He pulled her closer, his hand sliding to the nape of her neck. "I love you, Sienna. And I think if you look at me right now, you'll see I'm not lying." Sienna looked up at him. She looked for the deception, the manipulation, the game. She found none of it. She saw only the man who had wrapped her in his coat while she cried, the man who had destroyed a fleet to avenge her. She smiled, and it was the first truly happy smile she had worn in years. "I'm not a good employee, Gabriel," she teased softly. "I talk back. I tackle the boss. I have expensive taste. I can afford it," he growled, a grin tugging at his lips. "Then I have one condition," she said, stepping into his space. "Name it." "No more fake paintings. If we're going to do this, everything has to be real." Gabriel lowered his head, his lips brushing against hers. "It's real, cara mia. All of it." He kissed her, and this time there was no audience, no gunfire, no pretense. It was just a promise, sealed in the shadow of the mountains. They had started with a lie, forged in blood, and ended with the only truth that mattered. The cage was open, but Sienna didn't want to fly away. She was exactly where she belonged. And that is the story of how a stolen identity and a fake painting led to a real romance. Sienna went through hell, betrayed by her own brother, manipulated by a mafia boss, and nearly killed. But in the end, she found her strength. She realized that blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. Lucas got the hard karma he deserved, rotting in a cell, while Sienna finally got the life she fought so hard to save. What did you think of Sienna's choice? Do you think she should have forgiven Lucas? Or did he deserve to be abandoned after what he did? And what about Gabriel? Was he a hero, or just a villain who fell in love? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, romance, and twists, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next dramatic story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.